Hello everyone and welcome back to another Babbling Irons video with myself and Sloth today. More rumours, rumour mill is in town, and yeah, Thilo Kehrer is the latest name to be a part of it, with a potential move away in January. Obviously hasn't been playing really at all this season. It's been kind of frozen out, which is a shame, because he had some good moments and there was potential around the signing when he first came to the club, but this is now coming out in the news that he's open to leaving West Ham in the winter, which is obviously January transfer window, as he's not playing. A lot of clubs have inquired about him, and one of them is Eintracht Frankfurt, which I know everyone probably hates the name of because of what happened a couple of years ago. But yeah, Kehrer's contract is valid until 2026, so I think that name has just annoyed Sloth a bit there. But Thilo Kehrer, talk to me about him, Sloth, and how you feel about how he's performed so far in a West Ham shirt. You know, he's only been here less than 2 years, and he hasn't really made the impact that maybe he wanted to make. And he's kind of been shoehorned around. You know, playing left back, right back. Hasn't really played centre back for us. What are your thoughts on him? And you know, would you be open to seeing him move in January?
It's a shame because I think everyone likes Thilo Kehrer. Like I think, especially after the Prague scenes,
Yeah,
the parade where we saw him very much leading the celebrations. I think everyone's got a bit of a soft spot for him. But yeah, as you say, he's never really seemed to have a prolonged run in the first team.
yeah,
He has shown flashes of brilliance. Like he was probably my man of the match against Man United towards the back end of last season.
yeah,
Um, and I think sometimes on his day, he's one of those players who he is almost complete because he's got a great spring on him. He's quite quick at times and he will throw himself into things, but it just doesn't always seem to click. And unfortunately, that is reminiscent of his time at West Ham. It just
yeah.
doesn't seem to have worked for him, and I think it's a shame. But football's a fickle game, and I think
hmm
unfortunately, if a decent offer were to come in, you've got to look at it and say, well, can we upgrade? Can we put this money towards a quicker right back, or can we put it towards someone else in the centre, another versatile option? What
Mm.
can we do? And I think if we got around what we paid for him, because I don't think he's lost value, um, I'd consider it.
Yeah, I mean, it was strange really because he came in to the team very early on last year, and he was actually putting in some good performances, but he was making mistakes like scoring the own goal, a couple of other errors that happened, but he was actually performing pretty well, and West Ham fans were actually quite accepting of the mistakes because of how well he was performing, which is kind of the opposite of what's happened to Agerd. You know, he's made a lot of mistakes, and you know he's being crucified for it at the moment by the West Ham fan base, but. I think Kehrer was cut some slack early on with the mistakes that were made, but then he kind of got out of the team again and couldn't really get back in and make that centre back position his own. I think David Moyes kind of lost the trust in him playing as in a back four at centre back. He then did play at right back as you know Kufau was injured and was actually quite frozen out by David Moyes throughout last season. So then he started to put in some pretty good performances at right back, like you mentioned against Man United, excellent performance, man of the match. And, he did show that he can progress the ball as well. I think that was one of his best and most pleasing traits was his calmness on the ball from the back. And obviously that's built in the German way of playing out. But I think for Kehrer, it is a shame that he hasn't really been given any minutes this season. And, given the amount of games we've played, Sloth, are you surprised by his lack of activity, or is that just kind of summing up the season so far and it's coming back to bite us?
I think it's summing up the season so far. I'd like to say that we've seen lots of rotation in the squad and nobody
Yeah.
looks tired yet, but it's just Moyes management, isn't it? Like, and I'm not using that as a beat the man while he's down sort of thing, but we just know that there's not that element of rotation, and I think it's unfortunate, but I think it really tends to hit players' confidence as well. When they come on, they can often make those mistakes. And if you're not getting 20 minutes towards the end of the game, we
Mm,
have so many more substitutions than we used to
yeah.
in the last couple of years. I don't really understand why we don't do it more.
Where do you
But
think his best position is?
I mean, he's always been right back for Germany pretty much. So I think it. I would say that's probably where he's strongest. You know, it's where he's had his best performances, in my opinion. And just going back to the sort of slack that he was given by West Ham fans, I think it was because he worked his socks off and he really sort of he's tried as much as he could, but also the mistakes that he made, like the own goal, they weren't that bad. They weren't a case of him just being haphazard and swinging a leg at something because it was there. It was him trying to stop things and get in the way of it. And if he lunged in a bit too heavily and got beaten by a man, then those things can happen when you go in hell for leather.
Do you think as well, because Aged was kind of the big money centre back signing in that summer? Obviously, he picked up the injury in pre-season, which meant we then went to get Thilo Kehrer as well as kind of the backup rotation. And we also had Craig Dawson as well at the club at the time. So, you know, he wasn't really brought in with the expectations to wow, like I think Aged was. And do you think that's maybe why we're kind of a bit more critical of someone like Aged, especially compared to Kehrer in the early moments? And, you know, Kehrer hasn't particularly performed absolutely amazingly for what he was brought in for. You know, he's had some solid performances, but he's also had some pretty poor performances over the course of his West Ham career. So do you think the expectation that he came in with plays a part on that?
Massively so. I think whenever you look at the price tags in modern football, it's going to play a part in how you perceive these players. You know, just look at Enzo at Chelsea and how he's perceived. Like Moises Caicedo as well is another one. I think he had a solid season last year at Brighton, and yet he's £100 million player. So it's tricky. But with Aguerd, I think I expected a lot more because he was actually playing really well in France. He was quick and he was good on the ball, and he's a strong unit. He's a big guy. You wouldn't expect him to struggle with the physicality, but it's so clear that he has. You know, you look at the Newcastle goal and where he just gets two hands in the back, and he just then kind of topples over, and you think you're a 6'3" bloke. Like, what are you doing? It's you're not. That doesn't make you do that. So I think fans were also a lot more forgiving of Kehrer because, as I mentioned, that hell for leather attitude and his commitment to the cause. Whereas I just think Aguerd doesn't help himself sometimes, where he just doesn't really look that bothered.
Yeah. Why do you think Kehrer has kind of not had the game time this year? What do you put that down to?
Who knows?
What's changed for Moyes?
Who knows? That's the question for a lot of our squad this season, isn't it? You know, you look at Cornet. What's changed? You know, apart from this rumor that it was because of the medical crew and he didn't use West Ham's medical team and had his own team.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, wink, wink. Like it's one of those where you just kind of think, well, what's the difference? I don't really know, and I don't really want to speculate too much on it either, because I just think it's one of those things where something may come out in when he leaves the club, but we just don't know. I think for me, it does come down to this lack of rotation element, and the best way to get value for money on these players who aren't necessarily starters is to play them and to get them performing at least to some level. And if they can't do that, then, you know, you're not going to lose major value in terms of if you've played that player and he's cocked it up, then you're not going to miss out that much in comparison to, say, if you didn't play any games at all. So it's a tricky one, but I
liked Kehrer, man.
I know.
I'd be sad to see him go. I liked Kehrer. I think he's a very good player, and I think he's shown. You know, he did show glimpses of what he could be in a West Ham shirt, and it is a shame. And I have no doubt there'll be a lot of interest in him in the January transfer window. That is one move I do expect to go through, just because of, again, he's just not playing. We've got slightly, you could argue we've got cover at the centre back position without him. And like you mentioned, it could free up some wages if he goes out on loan or whatever to bring in someone on loan the other way in January, or even a cheaper option. So yeah, I think with Thilo Kehrer, it is a shame. I would love to see him playing more. I just don't think it's going to happen. Time's kind of run out for a lot of players, and I think what this has highlighted is, A, Moyes doesn't trust these kind of fringe players, and B, that the squad depth just isn't good enough at the moment for a team that's trying to fight on, well, at the moment, four cylinders with all three cup competitions and the Premier League. So it's going to be tough. Going into next summer. And I think January we'll probably look to offload a few players to kind of not do it all in summer. And we'll try and kind of negate that fact with a couple of loans coming in, maybe with an option to buy from January into summer. So, yeah, let us know what you think about Thilo Kehrer and his time at West Ham so far. Would you be happy to see him go out on loan or potentially a permanent move in January? Or would you like to see him back in the team, trying to fight for his place and given a chance to show his worth in a West Ham shirt once again? Let us know in the comments. Leave a like on the video as always. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. And Sloth, until next time,
Come on, you irons.